There you go. Box of bad brakes. Well, they weren't bad. Like I said, they were just getting pretty low. So like I said, you gotta make sure, we do a lot of stop and go traffic. Do not let these things go too far. These were pretty low, had maybe, like I said, about 20,000 miles left on them, if that. I would say 20,000 would be like metal to metal. So I would probably give it, I don't know, 12 to 15,000. But yep, these things had to go. Now, make sure you watch the whole video. Trust me on this one. Passenger side, cake. Driver's side, there's a trick to it, and you'll learn when you watch this video. All right, make sure you got the wheel chocked in the back. You got the jack raised up just high enough where you can kind of turn the wheel a little bit. And I'm going to get these off. I mean, you should have a certain socket for whatever size lugs you got. I got mine marked with a red dot. I think this is probably about, I don't know, a 15 millimeter maybe. So let's get this wheel off real quick. And let's get to the brakes. Oh, hold up. Turn this on. Now we got air. Let's go. Alright, so let me get all these lugs out the way. And there we go. There's our big caliper right there. Let me get this light out the way here. So there's our caliper. We've got on the back end, let me see what size these are. Yep, 13 millimeter. So you're not going to take the the top off. You're going to leave the top on. You're going to take the bottom off. The bottom bolt is way down here. That's the only one you're going to take off, because what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this thing up to compress it. So I'll show you how we're going to do that. So make sure you got a 13 millimeter with a socket, and get a flathead screwdriver, because we're going to kind of like loosen the caliper up just a little bit so this thing frees. We got to kind of compress that piston so we can free that up to swing it. Let me show you how. So let's get you a small flathead. There's a big hole back here. So you just put it in this hole like this. I mean, you barely pull it. Because what that's going to do is that's going to free up a little bit. You slide it in like this. So I can kind of feel the tip of the screwdriver. I can see it right about here. And just slowly, gently pull it. Like slightly. And right now I can feel it compressing. Like the screwdriver's moving towards me now as I'm pulling. And there's a gap coming between the caliper and the brake pad. So that's one way you can kind of compress it before you use your compression tool. This is my caliper compression tool right here. And it just kind of, goes inside of the bracket. Screw that thing down and it'll compress it. But right now, I mean, I got it pretty much, pretty flexible. So what you're going to need is a crescent wrench. Because the crescent wrench has to hold the inside bolt. Because you got an outside bolt you're turning, there's an inside bolt right here. You need a crescent wrench to slide on that inside bolt so you can actually get that outside bolt off. Let me go grab a crescent. So the bolt I'm talking about is, this is the bolt you're going to get, but it's on the bottom. You're doing the one on the bottom. And this is the bolt you have to stop from turning right there. And man, it's bigger than a 19. Are you serious? What size is that thing? Can't be bigger than 19. So that's the bolt you have to stop from turning right here. So you'll turn this one with a 13 millimeter, and you can stop this one. I'm going to use a pair of needle nose vice grips just to lock on here. You don't want to lock down on there real tight because you don't want to put crimp marks all over it. All you need to do is just stabilize it. You don't need to lock it on there and have it so tight you can't get it off. You're just stabilizing it so you can turn that one, that's all. Alright, so what I'm going to use is a pair of needle nose. And what I'll do, like I said, is all you do is just put them on here like this, and you're going to stabilize them so you can open them up pretty wide because you're not really adding any pressure to it. So I'm going to lock it on there just like so. Now let me get this a little tighter so I can kind of show you. So that right there is not too tight. Like I can lock it on there and take it off. But you're actually, and see there's no marks on it. So as you can see, I left no marks on that bolt, if it'll come into focus. But I'm going to do the one down here at the bottom. There's one way up under here. That one back there. This is the one I'm going to do right there. So I'm going to lock it on this one, and I'm turning that one with the 13 millimeter. It's on the underside. So that's how I got it locked on there like that. And then my socket will actually go on the outside over here, like so. If I can aim it on there, yeah. So it'll go on there like so. And I'll turn it, take it off, and flip it up. Okay, so that bolts out right there. And like I said, those things are just sitting right here. And you got to kind of hold this a little bit, because when you start turning that bolt back there, it's going to want to turn your vice grips too. Like I said, these are just needle nose vice grips. Do not lock them on there very tight. You don't need to lock them on there tight. You're just stabilizing the bolt from turning. That's it. And once you get to that point, because remember what we did when we were using the caliper? When we were using the caliper to push this in here, now we can just rotate this up. Check that out. Bam. So now that's up. Let me set this on the ground for you. So what we can do now is rotate that up, and there's our pads right there. And look how, man, those things are really thin. I'll take the pads off and show you exactly how thin they are. I got my new box of pads right there. So I ordered those online the other day. They just showed up. Those are ceramic ones. And like I said, these are the stock ones up under here. So you just kind of flip that up, and you can kind of move this out with your finger like this, if I can. Or you can use the, what's the name? You can use that screwdriver. Let's see. So there's that pad right there. All right, you can use the screwdriver to kind of stick back there, but I wouldn't recommend using a screwdriver to put on there because I don't like scratching up rotors. But if you're having a problem working it, just kind of put a screwdriver on one side and just kind of work it out, and it'll just pop straight out or whatever. So there's that pad, and here's this pad. So there are your pads right there. So that's the nice new one, and that's the one that's ready to be replaced. So, yep, let's do it. Let's get this show on the road. I mean, and those are pretty thin. I mean, I probably still got maybe, I would say another, I don't know, maybe 20,000 miles of stopping on it probably. But that right there is going to last me at least another 60, 70. Because once that little, you see that little beveled edge right there? Once that beveled edge on the end gets all the way to where it's like flat, that's when you know you're past the point. I don't wait until I hear these things creaking. Nope. I change them out well before that. So there you go. There's a difference in pads right there. I know a lot of people say, man, you say you had 20,000 miles. Yeah, this pad probably has about 20,000 miles, but this one probably has about, 80,000 miles of stopping on it. So I'm going to just replace these because I'm tired of the sound they're making. They're starting to kind of, when they heat up, they kind of sound like a little bit. These are the factory pads. They're probably not ceramic. These are ceramic for sure. So I'm gonna replace them with those. There, I got my light stuck up there now. So I can see a lot better, and I can use my hands a lot better. So we already took the front pad off. Like I said, that was the front pad was on there. The back pad's on the back side. You just kind of wiggle it a few times. I usually wiggle it from the top or the bottom. And there you go. Your pad's out. It should be this big. And I mean, I'm running pretty thin right now. So I'm going to swap them out now and get it out the way. Just be done. Like I said, and you want to make sure you clean all of this stuff out up inside of here, because it's just a bunch of grime and stuff like that. Man, I wish I'd have did this in the daytime, but I slept today. So there. So you can see all that grime and stuff that's in there. But you can get brake cleaner and clean it all. But me, because this car doesn't have a lot of miles on it, I know this is just surface dust. But if it was a car with a ton of miles on it, you'd want to actually get some type of cleaner and clean that stuff. So you want to get that, and you want to get the tops too. Like I said, get all that surface dust off, because you're going to put lubricant all in there. And now what I want to do with my lubricant here, it's just bearing grease. That's all it is. I just put a little bit on the metal pieces. That's it. Like I said, even if you get a little bit on the rotor, it's cool. Just wipe it off. It ain't going to kill you to wipe it off. People are like, oh my God, you got grease on the rotor. Don't worry about it. That's why you got towels. They invented towels for that. People be freaking out over nothing. Because like I said, you can still turn the rotor if you want to. You can wipe it off if you get some grease on it. So don't stress yourself out. And you put some up at the top. Yeah. Now, you probably ask, what's this caliper tool for? This caliper tool here is for, let me see if I can put this right about here. Yeah, well, this caliper tool here, what it does is it sits right up in here and it hits that caliper piston. Let me take this off for you. So there's your caliper piston sitting back there. It's not fully decompressed. See, it's still kind of raised up a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to decompress it fully by, let's do like this again. So what I do is I kind of like make sure this is wound down enough so it can fit up in here. So once it slides in there, you're good to go. So I'll just start tightening it up to about there. So now it's good and tight. Oh. Hold up, need to, and have your tools ready before you do this. All right. So you want to go slow. Do not go fast, because this brake fluid has to go back into the valve body and stuff, the ABS body and all that. And sometimes there's valves in there, and you could damage the valves if you go too fast. Like when you're doing an F-150, or I think it's a Titan or something, you'll try to compress it like this and it won't go, because you need to open up the valves in the ABS. That's why a lot of those places, you've got to have computers to work on some of these cars now. You can't just do it this easy. Luckily for this BMW, you don't need a tool. Need a computer. You just kind of go real slow. All I'm doing is just compressing that, you know, that piston back there. And I got my finger on it so I can feel where it is on that rubber boot. So as I'm turning it, I can feel it. And once it, like it stopped, I wasn't even turning hard, it stops. Don't go past that point. Do not crank it down. You're not trying to tighten it in there. You're just freeing up some space. So as I was turning it, I had my finger like about right here. So as you can see, that's where my finger was, about right here on that caliper. As I was letting it spin, so I could feel where it was against the boot. If you can feel yourself pulling the boot, that means the rubber boot came out too far and it's probably trapped in between. It happens on older cars. It wouldn't happen on this one because it wasn't old enough. But sometimes this rubber gets stuck and you could rip that rubber, and that's where you get a whole bunch of brake fluid leaking out. So this rubber should never be pinched in between your tool and this, you know, piston right here. Just make sure. And sometimes if you want, you can actually put lube around this piston part, because it's metal and the back of your brake pad is metal. So you can put, you know, lubrication on that, lubrication, you know, inside of here too, right there. But anything that's metal to metal, you might want to lubricate just a little bit. But yeah, now it's time to put the pads back on the tracks and get it going. Okay, so remember about the pads, make sure your hands are free of any grease. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of grease around like this. Just adding a little grease on my actual, like the little clip and everything, because that's what's going to be sliding back and forth and touching everything. It's that little clip right there. So you want to get stuff all over that clip. All right. And this is the way your brake pad will sit on there, because it just goes in a direction. The small side is going to face, you know, your hub, because it kind of wraps around the hub like right here, clears you some space. And you just lift this up. And because that piece is kind of open right there, you see where this here is kind of open. Oh man, I hate the fact that you guys can't see this. This is what happens when you live a nightlife and not a day life. You work on your car at night. All right. So see this piece here, right here? This has to be pushed in, like compressed, before it can slide in. So as you're sliding the brake in, put it into the sleeves, but start that way. Push in that way and then slide in. Because what you don't want to do is try to go straight in. It's not going to fit. This has to be compressed a little bit. Just slide it over, push it in. Let's see if I can do it without, you know, killing too much light. Dang it. Whatever. All right. Here we go. So you just kind of stick it on there like this. Right in that little sleeve there. All right. So I got it on each sleeve. In. Come on. I got you. I know you're going in there. Let's try with my other hand. There you go. I just need to use my other hand. All right, so now that's locked in there. Because what happens is all I did was push it over some, and it slid right in. So as you can see, the pad's locked in there. It's pretty flush. It's pretty good. So I just pushed it, and there's a lot of grease on there. If you want to wipe all that grease off, you can. Doesn't make a difference. I mean, I'll probably wipe it down just because I don't want it all showing. It looks kind of nasty, but, you know, get you a towel, just wipe it down a little bit. But make sure that thing is in there pretty tight, because what you want to do is make sure that your pad is flush with the rotor before you try to shut this thing down. Wait a minute. I gotta get the top one in pretty tight. See, my top one pretended it's in, but it's not. I know it's not. Yeah, because it's resting right on top of the metal. So I gotta push the top over more. I gotta just compress it over more and get it to lock in there. You can push it and kind of tap it with a rubber mallet too, because I've done that before with older cars. Get a rubber mallet and tap like about right here. And as you're tapping it, it'll just pop like right into place. So let me go get my rubber mallet. Okay, the rubber mallet right here. So this is my rubber mallet. So what I'm talking about is, you know, as you're kind of tapping here, you want to tap there. Now it slid right in. So I'm flush now. Now I'm flush all the way down. You want to make sure you're flush on the back end. There's no, you know, tilted pad in there, because if your pad is tilted, the caliper's not going to lock it down. It's going to be pushing metal against metal. And that's not what we're looking for. Your actual pad on there, you can clean up a little bit. Because what you're wiping down is everything that's showing. The metal to metal is still pretty lubricated because I put it on there pretty liberally. And sometimes some people, because it's metal to metal, they put, you know, lube on the back of their actual pad because it'll touch these here. And sometimes that'll create like a vibration sound or whatever. So they'll put lube all on the back of their pad. I usually put my lube on the inside of these two pieces. I just coat them and then slam it down. I'll put lube around the edge of my my piston ring. Then that'll be done. But yep. So now I just got to do the inside. Once I do the inside, like I said, you lubricate it and everything. You put lube all over it. That's all I'm going to do is just add lubrication to the, like I said, put it on there pretty liberally because you're going to wipe it down. Inside probably don't matter because people can't see it anyways. But, and this boot, this whole caliper can actually slide off because that boot kind of keeps it retained on there. But then you got to lubricate that, pop it back on there. It's not a big deal. It's just a pin that slides back and forth. That's all it is. And you can lubricate that pin if you want to. Since my car is, well, let me just do it for you since I got it off anyways. Just play a game. All right, there. So that's what I mean. You can just slide it off. See, that's already lubricated. It's real nice and lubed up and everything. So I don't have to really add lubrication to mine. It's just a dust seal and it's pretty lubricated. Sometimes that thing is so rusted. Like I said, you'll see people, you know, taking theirs off. Let's do like this. Yeah, you'll see people take theirs off and this thing is like just brown with rust. That slide pin is just rusted brown. This is still pretty lubricated. So I don't want to bother with it. So you just pop it back on there. There. Now you hear the boot snap back on. Now the boot snapped on. And if you want, you can get like a, let's say, a bungee cord. And you can hold that up if you want to. I probably won't, just because sometimes I just do like this. I'll just let this rest against that pad sometimes when I'm doing work. If you want to let it shut all the way down, you can. Just scoot this over. It'll shut all the way down. Ain't no big deal. For real. But I'm just telling you the different ways to do it so you don't think, oh my God, I did it. Don't worry about it. It's not that critical. Because I just got to lubricate my little tracks on back here. So right now I'm lubricating the bracket. Just putting some grease in there. Raise this up a little bit. Get up in the top part of the bracket. Because I want this stuff to, you know, have free travel back and forth. Now I'm going to wipe my hands off because I don't want to get grease all over my new pads. So just clean your hands off, and here you go. And remember, with this, you've got to slide it, like, because they'll go in this way, because this is the point. The small curve point faces inside of the wheel. You're going to slide it. Make sure this piece gets compressed so you can slide it in. So it has to kind of go in like an angle, like, so I got to kind of push at the same time. I'm going to pull this side. I'm going to be pushing it this way, but kind of pulling it towards me so it locks onto that rotor. And make sure, like I said, it sits flush. If it doesn't sit flush, that means one of these pieces is touching metal. So you got to kind of get your little rubber mallet out, little trusty rubber mallet, tap a couple of times, good to go. All right. So, and you can tell when you're actually on the track because it can't go anywhere else. I mean, if you need to climb up under the car to look. So right now I'm pushing like with the palm of my hand, but I'm pulling at the same time. Hear that? That locked right in place. I was pushing, but I was pulling at the same time and just snap. And sometimes you just like got to squeeze with both hands and it'll just snap right in place. So right now I can feel and I can even see it's flush on both sides. Hold up for a second. Let me wipe my hands off so I can pick my phone up for you. I want to show you this. All right. So, as you can see, it's flush on both sides. The little gap at the top is just that beveled edge. But I'm flush on both sides all the way down. So that lets you know those brake pads are locked in place. Because like I said, if they're tilted or in any way, you don't have them flush against that rotor and you got to start over again. So now that that one's done, what you do, you just pull the boot back in. Wait a minute. And now that that part's done, you just make sure the boot slid all the way over, like pull it towards you a little bit to make sure this is compressed. Pull it towards you. It just drops straight down. But don't forget, on the back side, you've got the one at the bottom. Make sure that, because this is going to want to hit. Let me show you something. All right. It's going to want to hit these two pieces here are going to want to touch. So make sure this is pushed in with your finger a little bit. Just move this over some and it'll slide down further all the way where it should rest. And once it slides down further, you get your little trusty bolt, slide it back in place back here, pull it a little bit outwards, like pull it back towards the firewall, and that bolt will just lock in place. Let's turn it to the right. There you go. It's locked in place there. And so then just kind of tighten that down, you're good to go. That ticking sound is that swinging up under there. Because like I said, that's on that inside bolt. That's what it'll do. It'll swing back and forth. But once it gets tight, it'll stop. See, now it's tightening up. Okay, now let's put the wheel back on. Let's roll this thing in place. And don't forget, after you do brakes, there's going to be a little play. So there's going to be a little play in your pedal because we just decompressed the calipers all the way. So in order to take that play out of your pedal, we didn't put any air in the lines. You want to get in your car, press the brake real slow, then press it again. It should stop because we didn't put any air in the lines, so we didn't have to bleed them. But bleeding is a whole nother process. We'll go over that one day. But this is how, and these wheels are hub centric, so you don't really need a lug in there. But what we can do is, because this wheel will sit right on top of this little center hub right here. So we'll sit it on the center hub like that. And once it's on there, let's make sure you line a hole up. What I like to do is I'll thread these in by hand because I use my air tools a lot. So first thing I do is I'll thread them in by hand just so I don't, cross thread them. Cross threading is the worst because it gets real stuck on there and they ain't coming off. So at least do them a few turns. I usually turn mine pretty much all the way in for the first one. That's my second one. I don't do it all the way in. I'm just making sure, they don't get cross threaded. There you go. Now what I'm going to do on the next part of this video is I'm going to do the driver's side, but but I'm not going to explain it. I'm just going to do it exactly how I just showed you how. And it's going to be in real time. So if you want to see exactly how long it takes to do it, and like I said, I've never done the brakes on a 2019 before. I've done other BMWs, but not a 2019. But if you want to see how long it really takes, keep watching this video, because I'm going to do the other side in real time. All I did was just snug them up. I didn't wrench down on them because I do that manually. This is what I use to do my manual wrenching. That's what I use. Don't forget my wheels are chocked in the back. So I'll let this down some. They're gonna let it down all the way. So I want to make sure I'm wrenching these things down very well. It's not that I don't trust air tubes, but you want to make sure you felt how tight they work. And that torque is pretty solid. There we go. Let's go to the other side. This is real time. All right, start your timers. Let's get it going. Oh, this is real time right here, baby. If I can get on the tubes together. I guess I better move this light so you guys can kind of see what exactly I'm doing over here. Decompress. That's enough. Go up under. Let's lock this down. It's locked. That takes a little time off, huh? On this side, you got a brake sensor. Kind of forgot about that. Alright, so the brake sensor is actually in the top of the pad on the inside. So make sure you keep that wire straight as possible. I'm going to pull it out the top of this pad. First, I'm going to push the pad off. Okay. So you kind of wiggle it back and forth. Yeah, it's just a typical brake sensor. And you only got it on the driver's side, which is not too bad. You got to make sure you wiggle this thing out because it's down in a real small hole in there. Did not think of that. There. So, first thing I did was got the, remember I told you could take the caliper off? Let's do that for now. So I need to see what I'm doing. Yep. Pop the sensor out. All you got to do is kind of separate it with the because the sensor, it'll be a sensor sticking straight down in here. Put a screwdriver up under like this and just kind of turn like this. The sensor will kind of raise up. And so once the sensor raises up, I mean, it's just easy to pull out after that. Now I got the sensor out. You can freely move this as you wish. That's if you want. Put a screwdriver on the bottom, slightly turn, then it slides right out. All right, let me go get some, here's some towels. Let's clean this stuff. Hate sitting on my knees on concrete, but it happens. All right, now let's lubricate. So got those lubricated. Got my new pads. Let's lubricate the new pads. Just the tips like this. Remember that. I wasn't supposed to explain. I was supposed to just kind of fly. But like I said, brakes are not that expensive. I think I paid like 70 bucks for these with tax and everything. It's easy. Like I said, I can put the front one in first. Let's get this out the way. We got a squeeze plate. Where's my little? Alright, so that's in. Don't forget, you got a sensor that has to go down inside of here. So, and the sensor just sits on top. This is going to take a little longer because I want to show you how this sensor goes, because I don't want you to kind of be scared. Be like, oh my God, the sensor. All right, let me stick you in here. But that's the sensor right there. And what it is there's a small metal piece that goes around. There's a small sleeve that kind of goes around, like a metal sleeve. And what that metal sleeve does is it takes the vibration. When it's metal to metal, that'll activate right there. So just basically, you know, this is all, and you just slide it back into the little groove. That's it. It's not that complicated. But I'm going to leave it out for right now because I want to slide this pad in. And you can actually put the pad and everything on. Just make sure you slide the sensor back in through the caliper, through the top of the caliper. Because you don't want to run it, you know, between the caliper and the bracket, because you'll pinch it. So split this up. There we go. That's locked in. Nope, the bottom's not. See, that's why you gotta make sure you're flush. Now I'm flush the whole way down. Always run your fingers up and down to make sure you're flush. Because just when I said, oh, locked in, no, the top locked in, but the bottom didn't. So you got to run your finger to make sure, okay, it's flush. Now we got to compress the actual caliper back in. Run our little caliper tool here. Remember, go slow. You don't have to go super fast. I got my finger back there, just making sure, you know, the rubber's not trying to twist with it. Because if the rubber's twisting with it, that means you're caught on it. And you don't want to be caught on that rubber. Yep. Just go until it stops. Once it stops, you're good. Let me clean some of this gunk off. I don't like the looks of that. To the back side, doesn't matter. But the front side, yeah, keep it looking clean. Put a little right on here. Put a little right on there. So we got all that protected. Don't forget, you got this at the bottom. You got to make sure this slides in so you can get this whole thing to drop. Come on, let me drop it. There we go. Just learned something. The actual, on the driver's side only, the caliper that has the hump on it, you'll get two calipers. The one with the hump goes on the inside. Because it goes on the inside because that's where the thing slides into. So I just learned that. But it's only on driver's side. It's not on passenger side. So I guess I should have talked about driver's side. Yep, that little hump right there, that it slides right in there. The outside doesn't have it. The inside actually has it. So make sure the one with the hump goes on the inside and not on the outside. Driver's side would have been a good side to start with. But that's it. Watch the whole video. You never know what you could learn. We're learning together. So you gotta make sure these things snap into place. Yep, I think I'm snapped in. Feel with your finger. Yep, I'm in on both sides. Now watch how it just slides down. Bam. There you go. Now it slides into place. It won't even fit the other way. So you can't even put them on backwards. It won't fit. Now, you got this little sensor here I was telling you about. That actually slides into the top. It slides into the top of your brake. So, what you want to do is feel for it, feel for it. And it should just slide right in place. And I think that only fits one way too, because if you look at it, there's a real thin groove. You'll see when you take your brake off, there's a thin groove. And on your pad, there's a thin groove. So the thin groove can only fit behind the thin groove. So therefore, the thin side of your sensor goes towards your wheel well. The thick side goes towards your actual caliper. and you just slide it right in there. Yep. Come on, thing. Don't make me a liar. All right. That's in. Woo. All it does is just sit right in there. I want to make sure it's snug though. Yep, it's pretty snug. It ain't coming out. And it's cool because what happens is that sensor has a little nub on the outside. When your brakes get too low, that sensor actually touches that little nub right there, and it'll say, hey, you need to replace your brakes. I like that. We kind of lost track of time. Driver's side is not exactly like passenger side, but that's why you watch the whole videos. You learn stuff. Because I learn stuff as I go along. I mean, I built a supercharger on a Jeep, and that was a week-long learning experience. Everybody was like, oh man, you took your whole Jeep engine apart, man, you're never gonna get it back together. That's okay, because if I take it apart, I'll put it back together, because I have to. And it was a learning process. Building that supercharger was a learning process, but I had fun doing it. I love talking about it, because you know, there was a lot about engines I didn't know, especially that mass airflow sensor issue. That was crazy. Come on, man. Little piece didn't lock in there. There we go. Brakes are on. Time. I don't know how much time that took, but you learned something special about driver's side. You're going to have a brake with a hump on it. That goes on the inside, and when it goes in there, make sure that sensor pops out. Pop it back in with thin side there, thick side on the outside, because it's got that little nub on it that has to face the rotor. But we learned that about driver's side. Done. Let's put this wheel back on, get in the car. Don't forget, start the car, press the brake a few times. Well, you got to press the brake first before you can start it, and you'll feel how soft it is. But once you press it, it'll be, and then you're ready to go. Okay.